Discover giant company, really the pioneer of cashback rewards. And what we implemented many, many years ago was you get 5% cash back on top of what you normally earn. After many, many years and many, many customer write-ins, they actually wanted to be able to pick their category. We offered home improvement in the spring because that's when people do a lot of home improvement activity. We offered gas and shopping in Q4 because that's when people are traveling and buying for the holidays. And what was interesting is all these people were completely paralyzed by what to pick. They started to ask themselves questions because they were afraid that they wouldn't be able to maximize that 5%. Questions like, well, what did I spend last year? What if my plumbing breaks and I should have chosen home improvement after all? And it was a really interesting case study from our internal brand, and we did not launch it.
Welcome to LaunchPod, the show from LogRocket where we sit down with top product and digital leaders. Most financial products are optimized for transactions, not human emotion. For many people, this transforms an already fraught topic into pure anxiety. Our guest today is building banking for what she calls the Cortisol UI. Melissa Douros has spent over 26 years of financial services, starting in debt collection, and now serving as the Chief Product Officer at Green Dot. Early on, she learned firsthand that shame is a terrible retention mechanism. That lesson now shapes how she builds financial products for millions of users for whom the time spent simply navigating their finances can be the most stressful of the day. In this episode, Melissa shares how FinServ companies can design for the Cortisol UI by building trust and experiences that reduce anxiety before the transaction, an experiment she ran for Discover's 5% cashback program, where test users collapsed under decision paralysis, proving that more choice can actually increase financial stress, how she flipped Great Wolf Lodge's booking model from 70% call center to 90% digital while enhancing the personal experience, and how Green Dot is navigating AI and agentic commerce without breaking the one thing that banks can't afford to lose: trust. So here's our episode with Melissa Douros. All right, Melissa, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Good morning, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. This could be a fun one. Your background, I feel like I say this almost every time we record this show, but it continues to amaze me, the breadth of like where people come from. But this is a first. So you start out your career, you started and founded a debt collection agency, somehow transitioned over years from that to a senior product role at an indoor water park chain. And now you're the CPO over at Green Dot, which is a financial services company. You have been all over the place. Before we jump in, can we just take like 90 seconds and can you make that make sense for me, please?
Sure, absolutely. So I have been in financial services for about 26 years now. And like you said, started in collections, have run pretty much the full gamut of the customer lifecycle journey. I was in operations and now in product and enjoying a really great career where I really always focused on building great products for customers on their very complex financial journey and seeking to uncomplicate that.
When you put it that way, it makes complete sense. So one thing to just jump right in, right? Because that's what we like to do here, is looking at the background in debt collection. I'm happy to say I've never had too much run-in with debt collection in a systematic way, which I feel like I should probably be very grateful for. But you took what, from my understanding of the industry, is a non-traditional approach, and it really showed you why empathy and kind of understanding of the clientele is so important in getting things done. And you said this really smart thing about basically shame is a terrible retention mechanic. Can we maybe dive into that? Like, what do you mean here? Like, what did you learn from this kind of early experience and how does that continue now? Like, what does that mean going forward?
What I really learned being in collections for so long is people are both unprepared for life moments that will take them into debt or take them into collections, and also that we just don't prepare people with financial education. I think you have a consumer education requirement that you have to solve in high school, and you could take intro to finance or intro to business or one of the many classes. But to be completely honest, I really believe that if you're not exposed to financial health along your life, you just really don't understand how to do it. And if you read, anything about people and their savings, people generally don't even have $300 saved. They're one health scare away from complete financial ruin sometimes. And so being in collections really helped me understand and try to help people prepare for these financial moments, give them the tools and the education to understand how they can be better prepared and not face that debt they would go into.
I think you bring up a good point. Like the world of just thinking about finance in general can raise people's stress and, almost cortisol levels, right? There's like a biological piece of this. If you're going to go into running product in a financial services product world, realizing that is probably a big advantage, and knowing how people think about this at a fundamental level. Does that weigh in now? Like, do you find yourself applying or like looking back to your time in collections to look at how you think about product now?
I do. And I feel as though I am constantly reminded that many, many people are ill prepared for the journey. So, and you can imagine being in this line of business for so long, I'm teaching my children or trying to teach them very healthy financial habits. I have a 15-year-old son who is about to be 16, and we keep pushing him to pick out a car. We've offered him money, and he is just so nervous about spending money. He told me the other day, I don't know how much money I'm going to need when I'm older, so I'm just trying to save it, and then I'll just spend it when I'm older. And it's just this complete vast sort of black hole that people just don't know about. And so when I lean on my own situations and I continue to do user research and talk to people, I am continuously reminded. And I'll say that, talking about that nervousness around it. I've been a part of a couple different ethnographic research studies in the past with my companies, and they really all have the same tenets. One is nudge me to a better financial future. The second one is master the fundamentals. And the third one is reinforce connection through the brand. So nudge me to a better financial future. If I have $500 sitting in a checking account and you have a high interest savings account, just tell me to move my money from the checking to the savings, right? It's really that simple. We're always offering these new products and services. How are we marketing them? But how are we doing it in a way that it helps people to prepare them for their journey?
Yeah.
And then master the fundamentals, right? Can I log in? Is my balance correct? Can I see what I need to do? And then reinforce connection through the brand is, what do we stand for? What's our product strategy? How are we helping them along that journey?
Mm-hmm. So I just thinking about my own experience, and, N of one here, but I like to think I'm fairly financially literate. I have a, business degree. I work professionally. I budget, run budgets for, 7, 8 figure budgets. I still, when I get like a notification from my bank that I should do something, or kind of any of the financial tools I use, I still look at it generally with either skepticism of like, well, why is this good for you? Or I just kind of go like, I don't want to pay attention to it. I just block it out. How, from a product perspective, or like you said, like brand perspective, do you kind of look at, how do you build people to trust that telling them to move to a high interest account is the best thing for them, and that they can trust you guys on that?
I would say the way that we continuously employ that is user research, talking to our customers. You mentioned N equals 1. We have to remember that when we are building our products is that most likely we are not our user, or at least not representative of the entire base. And so there's market research, there's user research, there's talking to our customers. And a lot of it is just describing exactly the moment that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, I'm going to ask you to do this. I'm going to send you a marketing communication. I'm going to show you in the mobile app. And so we're showing those artifacts to people, and we're asking them and having a dialogue with them. What makes you trust it? What don't you trust? Do you know how to do this? Do you understand it? Is the task easy? Is it hard? What would you do next? And so just having that constant dialogue with them and truly understanding, using our representative base and our customer segments, I really believe that's the way that we really start to lean in and get trust from people. And lastly, doing it right? Master those fundamentals. My balance correct, or I have questions about it. I have an issue. You shouldn't have to constantly try to call in and talk to someone and try to make sense of things. We should really be showing it to you in a very digestible format. It should be correct.
I realize I want to jump back for one sec to one thing you were talking about when you were talking about your, I think you said your son, where he kind of, was nervous about, all sorts of things around finances. And I think that's incredibly normal. Like, I know so many adults who have that same reaction, and it's almost, I don't know if we've been trained by society, or if it's so important. Like, it's how you put food on the table, it's how you put a roof over your head. Money at some level comes down to, and finances comes down to, like this fight or flight mentality it almost triggers in people. And if you're not careful in how you build these products, or how you look at, the ways you're communicating, it can just cause people to go the wrong way. Rather than feeling comforted, they can feel negative, even if they're doing all right. When we're preparing for this, part of what I saw kind of you had written on and talked about publicly before is this idea of like Cortisol UI, and how do you kind of like design for de-escalation? And then you got to part of it right there, right? Which was also like banks and digital finance companies have done a great job of designing for the transaction, but you also have to design for the relationship. What does that look like in practice? Like how, not just banks, but I guess how can someone at, a B2C services company or SaaS or any kind of interesting usage there, like what does that look like in practice? Like how do you kind of apply that going forward?
Every moment that we have with a customer is an opportunity to either delight and connect with the customer or to erode from a trust perspective. And over the years, we're always going to make mistakes. We try not to, but people do make mistakes. So how do you own that? How do you fix that? How do you send the message of, we heard you and we fixed it, or we did this and we fixed it, and now here you are and you can get back on the journey. With financial services too, and anywhere there's that trust factor, but the barrier in banking is slightly higher than the rest. And so if we think about the new innovative technologies that people want to use, I think they're sometimes a little bit more equipped in the beginning for companies outside of banking. And I say that because you think about AI and the way that we all want to use it and get more efficient and show people that we're innovative and we're using the latest technologies. The research is still showing that in finances, people trust AI to do simple tasks for them, but not necessarily complex. So you're gathering the data, gleaning the insights, showing you where you spent your money, maybe where you can change how you spend your money to make it work better for you. But maybe actually paying for things, we're sort of on the cusp moving into agentic commerce, but we've really got to make sure that we are still gathering trust, that we're showing people how we're doing things, giving them an out. Can I undo this method of doing it? And then finally, I would say when we're building things across the board, whether or not you're in banking or travel or anything where you're helping people purchase things or holding their money, you want to make sure that you have the right risk controls and monitoring in place. So as I mentioned, we make mistakes. We want to be very proactive in ensuring that we're not going to, but when we do, we want to make sure that we're employing the technologies to tell us when that mistake happened. It should never be customer generated or customer reported. We should see it, find it, correct it quickly, and move on.
I kind of joke with friends at times that there's a couple areas I really don't want that much innovation, or I don't want people to be cutting edge, right? The answer in a lot of these like utilitarian things are just such a fundamental part of our lives. It's like a referee, right? If you notice the ref too much, it's probably not that they're doing a really good job. So, right, like you said, you guys want to discover, any problem. You want to bring it to attention. You want to fix it. You don't want the customer to be finding stuff and bringing it to you and saying, hey, this is broken. The more they have to think about these problems and be like always monitoring for it, that's really negative. If they kind of just don't think about it and things just get kind of like quietly fixed and they get notified and they look and go, oh, great. Okay, that's fixed. And you move on. That's a great experience, but at times you almost miss those things because they just become expectation. Is that something conscious that you guys think about, or is there a way you want to bring that forward? Like, hey, we're fixing this for you, or is that the right way? Is it kind of sits in the background because you don't want people to have to worry about it too much?
Yeah, I would say it's a very delicate balance. We really take a lot of care to make sure that we're very risk averse, that we're mitigating it where we can. I think it also lends its hands. You mentioned if you're noticing the ref, it's probably not a good thing in a game. It's the same way within a digital experience for banking. And as much as the chief product officer and the rest of the product team would love if people were just, launching our website and mobile app and coming in and perusing and looking at all the great
features do they have?
Looking at all the great things that we offer them. They're very task-based.
Yeah.
They have a life, and they're looking for us to accent their life, not to dictate their life. And years ago, at a previous company, we redesigned the entire homepage of the website. We spent a lot of time in user research and understanding what are the top 3 activities that people wanted to do. And it's across the board for all companies. They are all financial institutions. They want to check their balance. They want to check their transaction. They want to see if their payment posted or if their money is in banking. And that's it. And that is what they'll do in an average of 3 to 20 times a month, depending if the lending experience or deposit experience. Now, people were averaging about 2 minutes in our website on the homepage, which means that they are not able to find what they needed. And once we redesigned it, once we learned the top 3 activities that they wanted, and we arranged the content hierarchy to show them that, they were spending a few seconds in it. The company got a little nervous and said, well, there's something wrong here. They're not spending a lot of time. And we said, actually, they're spending the right time. And we need to work smarter on how we are increasing engagement still and having people come in and seeing, the new things that we're offering them. But it's, it's not always of that thing when you don't notice the ref or when you're coming in and just spending a couple of seconds in there. It's actually a good thing because we're giving them what they want.
It's interesting that you kind of bring that up because that's been a really big discussion in a lot of circles. Here at LogRocket, what we do is basically, we started out as session replay, but at one point success was people coming in, spending a lot of time watching session replays. We always kind of knew though that was not a wonderful experience and probably not the best way to get what you need out of it. So over time, as we've kind of leaned into this, we've built, agents that watch the sessions for you, just tell you what's important, push insights about what's going wrong on your digital experience. And the joke has always been like the perfect iteration of LogRocket has almost zero MAU, monthly active users, because we just push to you what you need to know. You just have it and you know that everything's good unless we tell you you need to look at something. And so it's like minimal interaction. And that's the best outcome. It's not spending an hour or two a day in it. It's just finding what you need. And same with banking, right? This has been one of those things that continuously also comes up as we're like at these networking dinners we do across the country with product leaders. They kind of bring up like, in a world of AI, how do I start to look at and message to my board or my CEO? Engagement time is dropping precipitously. But like you said, that's a good thing. That's not a bug. It's a feature because they're getting what they want and they're building confidence with us just so much faster.
No, it's very true. And even instead of looking at it as the operations in the call center of average handling time, right? The lower, the better, as long as the call is resolved. And that was one way, that we actually were able to use AI and to implement it in operating efficiency is when a customer calls in and the agent is working with them after the fact in parallel while they're having the conversation, we now have AI transcribing the call and writing all the call notes. We're having AI look at the call sentiment and understand if did they start off with a complaint and was it resolved in its entirety. And so, employing those technologies to, again, speed up the time that we're interacting with people.
One thing you hit on when we talked prior, and I just want to bring it up because I think it kind of makes topical sense, is also like the idea that I don't think product is always just going to be feature. There's this guy we've had on the show a couple of times. His name's Non-Yu. He's the head of product at Linear, which is this very hot kind of like work planning kind of ticketing tool that like our development team uses it here and our product team uses it here. But he has this really intelligent way of looking at what your org structure and what your kind of structure of how you phrase projects really has an impact on how important things are and what the reality of how your product is going to reflect what you want to do. And you said something when we talked last time that was really interesting on this that I didn't pick up on until just now, which was you guys moved compliance from being kind of a backend cost center thing into a key feature set or part of like stability and confidence for customers. And that has really allowed you to move the needle on reducing issues and stuff, which I have to assume partly goes into kind of what you were just saying there too, is how you're reducing customer support volume in general and speeding that up and just making those things faster and better. And the best way to reduce those is to get rid of the core issue, right?
Yeah, definitely. So we are first line of defense. So we want to make sure that we're building compliantly. And originally, when I had started, the risk and fraud compliant product team sat outside of my organization. And as companies mature, they change their org structure, they change their methodology. It's how we mature that is going to make it more operationally efficient. And so moving that team into the product org structure, they started to take more direction on how we should be building things instead of just always what we should be building. And in my team now, that team, they're both a vertical and a horizontal. So they intake their work from the fraud, risk, and compliance teams. We have regulatory items. We just have things we want to make sure are ticked and tied and that we're building them stronger. But they also actually manage sort of their own consulting firm internally. And so everything we build, whether it's money movement, whether it's a new embedded finance capability, that team has office hours and everybody is required to bring their new feature there and have a discussion with this product team to understand how they either can build compliantly or how the engineers on their team are going to help them do it. And it really helps permeate a culture of responsibility and compliance and not just keeping it within one organization.
It's kind of like a lot of companies when, kind of, I guess 2 years ago now, AI was kind of like ascending. People were realizing, oh, I need to start looking at this. I feel like we saw so many places where they just had this like little ivory tower center of excellence of AI. And then that team was expected to really like push out these learnings or figure out how they were going to apply AI across a million different product things. It was just on like these 1 or 2 or 3 people if you were a big company. But as companies have matured, I feel like I've seen a bigger trend of you probably have a couple experts still who really focus on it, but it has become much more of a central to the product, and how do you kind of distribute this across the whole team in a smarter way and get people thinking about, how do we build with this just as a core piece, not just how do we like sprinkle it on at the end. I know probably in a lot of people's minds, there's nothing more different than like in innovation wise, as one end, you probably have AI, and at the other end of not innovative, you have compliance. But in reality, like that model of how you distribute these key learnings and build a culture of innovation and trust and all these things kind of fits either one of them in an interesting way.
Yeah, I think it's important what you said about building that culture of it. I talked about compliant permeating, but we want to make sure AI and innovation is permeating through it as well. And it's hard to just say, go use AI. Go figure out how to use it. Right? People don't know how to start. They understand problems, they understand opportunities. And then if you can permeate that culture, if you're starting at the top and saying, we encourage safe uses of AI, we want you to go explore them. We have this forum for you to then come and bring this tool where we can vet it quickly and make sure that it's safe for us to use. And then we want you to go use it. And that is what we are trying to do at Green Dot, to make sure that our teams know that when they have an opportunity, when they have a problem, when they have a new product, they're very encouraged and it's very safe to explore those use cases. We also have existing vendor partners that we work with, like Figma. So I also lead the product design team, and they use Figma to build all of our creative experiences. They've got AI plugins. We can create a prototype and send it to user research much faster than when designers would actually have to code it. And so there's all of these use cases that we can do to speed up what we're doing. However, if we don't permeate that culture and let them know, hey, it's okay for you to do this, we're dead in the water.
One thing I wanted to bring up is we kind of jumped from like debt collection to Green Dot, but in there you've had a lot of different roles, and one was at Discover, which I think everyone probably knows is a giant financial company. But the rewards program there is really, really big. And there's an interesting story there about like limited choice, too much choice, and how you can kind of almost lean into what users say and still not give them what they really want. Can we dive into that for a sec?
Absolutely. So I have a great example for that. So as you mentioned, Discover, giant company, really the pioneer of cashback rewards. And what we implemented many, many years ago was the idea of having these rotating categories. Every quarter, you get 5% cash back on top of what you normally earn, and you sign up to do it. And so the idea was you signed up, you understand the program, where you can spend, and then we would get an incremental lift and spend out of it. After many, many years and many, many customer write-ins and conversations of how they'd like to see the problem evolve, they actually wanted to be able to pick their category. So we offered home improvement in the spring because that's when people do a lot of home improvement activity. We offered gas and shopping in Q4 because that's when people are traveling and buying for the holidays. But they wanted to be able to pick their own category. And we spent months and months user research, getting verbatim, showing digital experiences and doing usability. And we launched a internal friends and family program to just a select few of us to be able to pick your own category before we sent it out to the wild. And what was interesting is all these people who know this program in and out, who are in banking, who are probably rewards gamers because we know the ins and out of what to do, they were completely paralyzed by what to pick. And the problem is they started to ask themselves questions because they didn't want to miss out. They were afraid that they wouldn't be able to maximize that 5%. It's very easy when we picked it for them. We let them down the path. You knew exactly what to do. It's a wide open space. They were asking themselves questions like, well, what did I spend last year? Well, am I going to do the same things? Am I going to spend in that category this year? What if I don't choose the right category and I choose this one? I end up spending here. What if my plumbing breaks and I should have chosen home improvement after all? And it was a really interesting use case and case study from our internal brand, and we did not launch it, but it was the right thing to do. And I'm glad that we did, because I think we would have complicated a program that truly was not complicated from the start.
It kind of goes back to early on what we were talking about, where people kind of intrinsically get nervous or their cortisol levels raise when they're looking at or talking about just going through financial stuff. And here's an example where you picked probably the people who were going to be most literate and most able to take a dispassionate look at this. And even they got into the, what if and the FOMO and all these things. I remember like in business school, one of the core things they tried to impress upon us was that people are always way more worried about potential loss than trying to optimize for potential gain. Like if you tell someone, oh, there's a 5% chance you'll lose $10, but a 95% chance that you'll get $5, people are going to really optimize around not losing that $10. So where Was it just you scrapped it, or did it go anywhere else? Or
Yeah. We scrapped it. We went back to our original program, and it really led down the path. And for myself, just my always takeaway was user research before you launch a product when you are dealing with people's money is very different than when you launch it. So if you put we build new products and services all the time. We're trying to understand, will this work? Will you use it? Can you use it the way we built it? And while we feel like everything is ticked and tied, when it's you and your money, it is a very different experience.
Mhm.
And so at Green Dot, we put a methodology of always having a friends and family test so that we can truly understand where we're going to get pinched that we couldn't in the upfront user testing. Because what it's your money and it's not play money, it is a very different experience.
This just came up recently when we had, I want to say it was Ben McAllister from CrossFit, but the net was, at heart, people you usually probably just don't give a shit about your product, and not in a bad way, right? Like not in a people don't care, but it is rarely the core number one thing in their lives that they are worried about. And this is the problem you run into with like any kind of dedicated user testing. You are putting someone in a studio or in a place, or even just giving them a proactive experience going, hey, use this, try to do this. You're like, it's an unnatural environment almost always. It's really hard to make a natural environment. And so people can do the thing at that moment, and maybe it works fine when you're saying, hey, like in this case, pick which benefit you want. Be like, yeah, that's great. I'll pick this one. Like, that sounds wonderful. But A, if it's like actual just kind of a test environment, there's no actual consequence to picking wrong. And B, you're kind of putting them in a fake experience. In reality, they have to remember to do it on their banking app. And they actually have to, like you said, think about, well, what happens if I have a leak and I need to call a plumber? You get into all these real life things, and people are much more worried about that than whatever, your or my product is. And it's so interesting to see kind of that come up again and again.
Yeah, it's very true. And I think we've gone from bank-centric or product-centric, as you mentioned, we enhance people's life to life-centric. And I think that's why you see a lot of rides in embedded finance opportunities, which is really at the core of what Green Dot does, is to provide financial solutions where people are at when they want to do it. You go to Walgreens, you can put cash into your account. And so what we want to do is continue to push on that life-centric. I think what we're also seeing now, though, is the birth of the consumer-centric. If you think about agentic commerce and how it will most likely level the playing field of brands, we're actually going to go, we're products, we're bank, you walked into a bank, you did your activities, or then we moved to digital, you launched the digital app, you get your product opportunity. Now we're in your life. Then we're going to go to this, a consumer-centric where agentic commerce and tasks are done for you. And so we just have to ride that wave. We have to understand the morphosis and the maturity of how we spend, of what people expect, continue to talk to them, and move along in their life with them.
An interesting thing maybe is to look at the Discover example, forcing people to make choices. It ended up being not the right path to go. And I can applaud you guys. And oftentimes when you kind of sink that much work and cost into it, people are hesitant to pull back and go in their mind. But, the whole sunk cost fallacy is pushing forward with that, when the best answer is like, oh, we were wrong. Let's move on and try the next thing. But previously, aforementioned indoor water park chain that you worked at, which I don't know about others, but that spiked my interest, and my kids would probably kill me if I didn't ask you about this. You were at Great Wolf, which I don't know how big Great Wolf is, if it's regional or national or what. I'm in the Northeast, and I see commercials for it just all the time. It's just a big thing that kids are always begging parents to go to. But this was an example where you helped people make these decisions, and you moved it just into a digital venue, so that people still made a bunch of decisions, and that was the right thing to do. So kind of a little bit different than previously we talked about, but can we jump into this? Because like I said, my kids will, slap me if I don't ask you about Great Wolf.
So my entire, I feel like, purpose for being at that company was to build a great guest experience. And the user research that we had done said that the person who booked the trip, whatever vacation it may be, but the person who would book the trip at Great Wolf, they had the worst time. They always worried if they picked the right place, that people were going to have enough fun, if they had enough money, if it was worth it. And so the entire guest experience was important to me, but it was also important for that person who had booked this trip and was trying to make memories with their family in this incredibly busy, lifestyle that we all have. And so one of the things, not just building an online experience so people didn't have to call and spend 45 minutes on the phone with someone, but they could actually launch the mobile app and see this experience, book it, see pictures and images and, people like that and doing the things that they want to do. What I also wanted to do was solve the problem where once guests got to the lodge, they would stand in line for an hour or an hour and a half because the interaction with the agent was so long where they would have to talk to them about dining packages. And we had many, and so which one, and drink packages. And do you want to buy what we called the Paw Pass, which had numerous tiers of excursions throughout it. And so, as you mentioned, the cortisol UI with the cortisol, in-person experience that just continued to stress them out. And so how could we take that offline experience and just give them everything up front? And so when they arrived at the lodge, they picked up their key, they picked up any call pass item that they needed, they went to their room and they started making memory. That spoke so much to me. At the time I had kids who loved Great Wolf Lodge. They've since aged out, but they loved going. And so I could take them and I could have my own experience and see, what can I do to make it better for these guests?
Was there pushback on that, or like, were you brought in specifically to do that? Or was it something you kind of diagnosed was important to do?
I would say it's something that I diagnosed, but not me alone. My boss and the rest of the team, we were always looking for ways to improve the guest experience. And so just kind of picking the ones that we felt were super solvable. And if I'm standing in line and my kids are pulling at me and wanting to go, seeing all the other kids having fun, that I understood with, I was probably not unique in thinking that I should speed that up. But I also think, and, not unique to Great Wolf, not unique to baking, is we get very stuck sometimes in the way that we do things because we know how to do them. And even if our process is held together with bubble gum and toothpicks, it's ours. And we know how to navigate the pitfalls and the issues and how to move around it. And so sometimes it can be very hard to change. I am a big proponent of change. I immensely enjoy transformations as long as the outcome is making us stronger and more efficient and providing a better customer experience. So I would say collectively, Great Wolf and especially at Green Dot, we just embrace change and how we can pick at those things and fix them for people.
This is probably really applicable right now, to be honest, right? With the rise of AI, I guess, how do you look at change management and how do you look at kind of like bringing people along like that, whether it be at a really easy to understand shift like Great Wolf or maybe banking or just general, like I think this is an often overlooked area that people need to focus on.
So we are actually in the middle of a very large transformation right now in our operating model. And product always has to focus on, are we supporting the business correctly? Are we supporting ourselves correctly? And I also have to know that even though I've done mass scale transformations across the company, not everything works the same depending on the business model and the company and the people that are in it. So when I got to Green Dot a few years ago, I spent the first couple of months just talking to people, doing my own sort of guerrilla user research, right? Just asking the question, are you getting everything that you can from my team? Are we supporting you in the way that you would expect? And generally, more often than not, people are very open with telling you, actually, I have this problem or I see this as an opportunity. And so as I sort of gather all of those together and determine what are the most important, what's going to make it stronger, more efficient, have a better operating model, and ultimately drive the business goals, one of them was to move sort of a very antiquated way of working, which is the project methodology, into the product delivery team methodology. And so sort of all the things that we talked about today with compliance, with risk, with user research, with customer experience, this truly is the today's version of taking all of that, putting it together to define what are the outcomes that we want to have to be successful with the products that we're building, with the data that we get from implementing those products, and then how do we continually improve to make them better? And it's hard. You mentioned change is hard for people. Change management is hard for people. And so a lot of what I had to do was find my evangelists, find the people who worked at other companies who have either done transformations or moved into this product delivery model, have them also be telling my story. Tell people, here's the problems that we have defined, I've uncovered with you. Here's the way that we are going to fix those problems in this new way of working. And sometimes that conversation is very different between my CEO, who I need to be an evangelist, or my GM, who really just wants me to build things quicker and faster and better for the partners, right? Or my team, who's like, I can't do everything and I need defined roles and responsibilities. And so I have to take all of that together and decide what's the best sort of massaged product delivery model for Green Dot. And that's what we're in right now.
Nice. Well, it's interesting to hear kind of how this has been working and evolving over the years and kind of how you take experience from as far back as debt collection and bring it forward, and really seeing how there are these kind of often couple intrinsic kind of indelible qualities about how humans act, how we as people leading some of these products and solutions and kind of trying to solve these problems need to look at them to be successful, or common pitfalls you can have where it goes the other way if you're not careful. But there is Green Dot that you still have to go back to and continue to drive change and lead product forward. And I think probably we're getting close to the time when they're going to get mad at me if I keep taking your time. I just got to say thank you for coming on. It's been a real pleasure learning about this stuff, hearing you talk about it. If people want to reach out, learn more, ask you more, learn about Green Dot or kind of any of your experiences, I have to assume LinkedIn is probably the best place to say hello.
It is. And I am completely open. I love learning from other chief product officers, love talking to people about the embedded finance space. It's an ecosystem. We're all on this journey together. So I'm open book when it comes to having those conversations.
Nice. Well, loved having you on. Thank you so much, Melissa, for joining. And yeah, we'll have to follow up in a bit to see how kind of some of the active change going on right now maybe winds up. But appreciate you coming on with us. Thank you so much.
I would love that. Thank you.
All right, have a good rest of your day. See ya.